Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you tonight on the WWE Network. Was none other than Hot Rod Roddy Piper night. They had a selection of different shows that they aired throughout the night. I believe they played Royal Rumble in 1992. They showed a Tuesday Night Titans. They showed a Saturday night's main event with Trick or Treating with Roddy Piper. And they debuted a new show on the WWE Network, which was going to be debuting soon, called Table for Three, which looked like it was filmed during WrestleMania 31 weekend. It was a breakfast hosted by Mean Gene Okerlund with Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper sitting down to have breakfast. It looks like it was a good long breakfast that they filmed from a few different angles and cut down into a 30-minute episode. For the people out there that are a lot like me, who subscribe to WWE 24/7 back in the day, or maybe when the WWE Network came out, you went into the archives and you found the Legends of WrestleMania Roundtable, or Legends of Wrestling Roundtable, whatever it was. They used to have a really good show where normally they would have a host and they would have 4 legends and they would talk about different topics. They released a DVD set. They've released different DVDs talking about different legends. There's like Bob Backlund, Hulk Hogan, Iron Sheik, Andre the Giant. A lot of the older. There's Junkyard Dog and Jerry Lawler as well. But those were really good shows, and I've always wondered why WWE didn't really bring those back. It seems like, honestly, you could easily bring in 5 guys and easily crank out 4 episodes of that in one workday, especially if they're going to go with a half-hour work or a half-hour sort of show schedule, because they didn't really do a lot of editing. It's just 4 guys sit down in a room, give them a topic, and just talk. If you got guys in there with the wrestling knowledge that a lot of these legends do, if you think about those old shows, a lot of times it was like Jim Ross, Dusty Rhodes. Taz was on a lot of the older ones, because they haven't had this show in a while. I mean, you throw things out there. These guys have these great wrestling minds. They can just blast things off. Mick Foley's been on there. GDP's been on there. Honestly, from watching the Table for Three, I thought that it was a good premise of a show. I'm guessing that they filmed a lot of these WrestleMania weekend. I didn't like the presence of them, sitting down to eat breakfast. There was times when the waiter came up and, was pouring water. I found it a little bit distracting. There was a time when they were serving food, and, there were some parts throughout the middle of the show when they were eating. It does remind me a lot of what Talking Shop brought up on the podcast this week, was the Kevin Nash shoot interview, where he's sitting there eating pasta. More than likely, you've seen this shoot interview if you surf around YouTube a lot, but nothing really that great. It seems like Kevin Nash doesn't want to be bothered with the shoot interviews, during this whole time. He just wants to sit there and really enjoy his pasta. But more than likely, when he took some sort of an independent show, he said that he would do this, or maybe the money was just too good, and he just decided to take the guy's money and be an ass about it. But I'm not sure. But during this episode of Table for Three, they talked about WrestleMania legends, and here you have 3 of the biggest WWE WrestleMania legends that there are. The main event of WrestleMania I, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, Roddy Piper. You have one of the greatest backstage announcers of all time, and Mean Gene. I've honestly never really heard Mean Gene do commentary. I think I've heard him do it once or twice here along the way, but being able to get the best backstage interview out of certain wrestlers, that's really what this guy's highlight is. He's a WWE Hall of Famer, and he was a really good host for this show. I can remember, I believe the last show that he hosted was Confidential, which was a fun look inside the WWE. They went and they talked about a lot of different WWE, I guess you can say, like conspiracy theories and just things that you thought you knew, but you had no idea. They did inside looks. They tried to do their best of copying MTV's Cribs. That was a really fun show. They have one DVD that came out, and honestly, that DVD shows off Confidential in the worst possible way. That show was great, and I remember looking at it a few times of trying to pick up the entire series, and I wish I would have pulled the trigger, because I think that was off of it wasn't off of Craigslist, but it was off of one of those, backdoor deals on the internet, and I don't think you can find them anymore. Hopefully the WWE Network sooner than later will put them up. I don't think there's a huge demand on them, but in this episode of, Table for Three, you had lots of great stories of basically Piper and Orndorff. I like the very beginning. They played the grizzled old vets, talking about the guys today, talking about not being able to get the right break in the business, talking about, they're being held down because, there's A match, or there's the B match, or the C match that goes along with the WrestleMania. And Piper and Orndorff basically told the same story of, the way they looked at, no matter where they were on the card, they, as a wrestler, only had one match, and that was the only match that they mattered, that mattered to them. It didn't matter if they were the first match on the card, or if they were the main event, if they were anywhere in the middle. They were going to go out, and they were going to give the best match that they could, and that's where they were going to be able to put them on the card. They talked about, there was no love lost between Roddy Piper and Mr. T. Basically, Mean Gene Okerlund was trying to get out of Piper. Why is it that basically you guys didn't like Mr. T so much when there was so other many celebrities that were revolving around WrestleMania, whether if it was Liberace, Muhammad Ali, Billy Martin, the list goes on and on. I mean, there's as many celebrities involved with WrestleMania that Vince paid to be there than there was of almost pretty much more wrestlers. But, Piper, puts it as it is, Mr. T wasn't showing up to ring the bell. Mr. T wasn't showing up to, be the guest announcer for the night. Mr. T was getting in the ring. Mr. T thought he was going to get in the ring and bounce us around the ring and, play pro wrestler for one night. And then he was going to go off to his Hollywood set and brag about how tough he was and how, how easy it was to be a professional wrestler. Basically, if you look at Lawrence Taylor in the main event of, WrestleMania 11, you can easily see that it's harder to be a pro wrestler than most people think it is. Lawrence Taylor is a guy that honestly did train to go into that WrestleMania match with Bam Bam Bigelow, but maybe he didn't quite train enough, because this guy gets severely blown up in this match, and it just shows you that you have to be in the best physical shape to be a professional wrestler. You can't just hog dog it and just breeze through on good looks, I guess you can say. But Mr. T was getting in the ring, and Orndorff and Piper were both had the idea beaten into them, is that you protect this business, you do not embarrass it, because there wasn't only Hogan, Snuka, Orton, Wonderful, and Piper inside that ring that night. Basically, every guy on that card, especially Vince McMahon in the back, was depending on WrestleMania being a success. And if WrestleMania flopped because Mr. T wasn't able to carry the ball that night, a lot of guys are going to lose their jobs. Definitely, Vince McMahon bet the house in real terms that WrestleMania was going to be a success, and WrestleMania would be the building block of the WWF into the foreseeable future. Did he really believe it would be going to WrestleMania 32 in Dallas? I'm not 100% sure, but that's just the way it was. From there, they get into some fun-loving stories. Basically, they there's no rules on this show. There's basically, I know that WWE on television with the USA Monday Night Raw and SmackDown, they go by PG, but definitely I think the WWE Network knows that there's older subscribers and there's older viewers that want to see the older legends, and they want to see the things that they don't get to see on television, whether if that's the Attitude Era or just adult conversation, I guess you can say. And they don't really get into adult conversation. They talk about, shitting in hats. They talk about, taking dumps. They talk about a lot of things that push the limit that wouldn't be on television. They talk about ribs, where basically one of the wrestlers, Frenchie Martin, was walking through the airport, and someone had stuffed a spring inside of his suitcase and stuffed his suitcase full of adult novelties, I guess you can say is the nicest thing to say. And as he was walking through the airport, the spring busted open, shooting his luggage, what they had stuffed inside of his suitcase, all over the crowded airport, and he had to walk around and pick up dildos and lingerie and all sorts of other adult things that they shoved inside of this bag, trying to humiliate him. But they said that Frenchie Martin was one of the nicest guys in the world, and with the most grace and the most honor, saying, "Excuse me." He picked up all of the items, shoved them into his suitcase, took the rib, and moved on down the road. A funny rib that was pulled on Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff was that basically he scouted out the bag that he was going to buy. He said that he looked over this bag for a long time, made sure it would be the best bag for his day-to-day travels, made sure that he got the best price on it. He brought it into the locker room, came back from a match, and someone had, chained up his bag and put 16 locks on it by his count. Different ones with keys, different ones with, number combinations. There was no way in the world that he was going to be getting his stuff out of that bag. And Mr. Wonderful overreacted to the rib so much. He got so furious. He got named Oscar the Grouch, a nickname that he said he carried for years, even to the point where, when he got home, his wife was calling him Oscar. The rib was so bad that no one ever fessed up to, what the rib was. Honestly, in my mind, I really liked the table for three, sort of presence of getting guys into a room and just having them talk. I don't know why you can't do this at WWE's network studios, and just sort of have a controlled environment instead of having them pour, drinks and eat food during it. When they did the Legends talks, they had an open thing where, Michael P.S. Hayes and other, Dusty Rhodes would have a big stogie, a big old cigar during the show, and that was fine for the most part. Most of the guys wouldn't take drags off the big stogie as they were, talking. They would wait until more than likely the camera was on somebody else, and they would take care of the business then. But I'm glad. I'm hoping that there'll be more of these. More than likely, maybe they'll have a sit down with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, or any other, sort of combinations of guys that were either rivals or friends, groups at a time. I know that, definitely at WrestleMania 31, the big thing was, get things done for the network, which we've already seen with Swerved, and The List. And now this show, lots of things that were filmed WrestleMania weekend when there's lots of celebrities, lots of legends, lots of people within reach and able to come in. I'm sure that, being there at the restaurant, having the food, and, having all the different camera angles and making sure the restaurant was closed down, I'm sure that cost them a pretty penny. So I don't think that this show is going to have a long life. Hopefully they'll move it to a more controlled place like the WWE Network Studios, like I said, and we'll see what comes from this. We all love Roddy Piper. It was great to see a fun-loving Piper one more time. I know that there's been talks about his movie coming out next year, and people wanting to see that. But if you want to see a fun-loving Roddy Piper have fun with Mean Gene Okerlund and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, this is the show for you. And it was a good one. I just don't think that the show itself, Table for Three, is going to live on forever.